Welcome, everyone, to another supplemental edition of Conscious Migration, where today we're going to focus on a specific aspect of clairvoyance. Now, when I say supplemental, I just mean this is going to be more of a straightforward sort of a talk. There's no fancy illustrations or editing tricks here on this one. I'm always working on a regular episode like that, but those do take weeks of work, and not all of these discussions really need to be illustrated like that. I'm saving that work for the episodes where we really dive into the more abstract or subtle concepts. So in the meantime, I'd like to try to sneak in some more conversations that can be released more regularly, a little bit more frequently. So today I want to talk about what my own relationship has mostly been with clairvoyance. We've talked about this a lot on the channel, but I've not really talked much about what it means personally, what my personal relationship is with it. So when I talk about clairvoyance, I tend to identify clairvoyance as the ability to remember both the past as well as the future. As always, I do not see this as a supernatural ability. There are plenty of respected theoretical physicists who have said they can't say for sure why we don't remember the future like we can remember the past. Now, I've already broken down the mechanics of having access to the entirety of time itself on many other episodes, so I won't rehash all those details, but I'm going to summarize my position on clairvoyance like this. According to physics, all of what we see as the expanse of time from the past to the future exists at once. I always refer to this wonderful illustration from Dr. Brian Greene, which I will link below. It'll really help you picture what we're talking about when we say that time as a whole exists at once. It's our brains that appear to handle the concept of time in this actually rather odd fashion, where we see the future as this unmade reality that is forever moving towards us until we experience it in the now, after which it sort of vanishes again into another unmade obscurity, which we can only remember. We think of that as sort of being behind us. However, experiments in physics where they work with particles which do not follow the ordinary rules of time have shown beyond a shadow of a doubt that this is not what is happening at all. All of time exists now. On that note, if you haven't seen the movie The Arrival, you really should. That's all I'll say about that. It appears that the more time you spend training yourself to remain conscious on the now, the only reality that exists, the more you begin to unlearn how you've been programmed to see reality. You begin to see, oh, I've been like the needle on a record player, and I've been watching the potential for music forever come towards me, which then creates sound when it actually hits me, and then it disappears back behind me. The more you pull back from, you could say the identity of a needle on a record player, the more you're able to see the entire record. And you see that all of the music exists as one complete reality. So yes, this is something anyone can train themselves to do, and for some people it appears their brains are just naturally wired to pick up this information. My grandmother, for instance, she absolutely had this ability. I started noticing how she knew what was about to happen at a very young age, and I started asking questions, like, Dad, how did Grandma know this exact thing was going to happen? And my parents didn't really know what to say to me. I'd kind of hear, well, Grandma just knows things. So presently, at my stage of development, I get glimpses of what is about to happen several times a day now, and so far it is the most useless, impractical superpower ever. They're happening so often now that I don't even really notice it as odd. It's become part of the scenery at this point. Now, just as I've described, trying to control astral projection, most of this happens very spontaneously. I'm not consciously choosing, as far as I know, what events I'm going to receive information about. But so far, I've not been able to use this ability really for anything practical, you could say. Um, I will say I'm getting better at feeling out how a situation that's totally out of my hands is going to play out. But that information is mostly very general, as in, I can't really see the details. I can't see the blow by blow play of events that are going to happen. I am able to tap into the general, or how the whole ordeal is going to feel. I can sense when some future event is going to be traumatic, where there's a sense of a lot of aggressive energy, or the opposite, where I can feel this is all going to go smoothly, etc., etc. But when I get access to specific details about the future, they are almost entirely random and practically worthless. I've never seen, like a future catastrophe and managed to contact the right people to avoid it happening. Nothing like that at all. The information I get appears to be very personal. It's entirely for me and me alone. And that seems to exist only as another reminder that, yep, I just saw what was going to happen once again, and it did no good, and I'm left with no proof for what just happened. I'll give you an example, as just one example, and again, this is happening constantly. I'm well past the point where coincidence comes anywhere near serving as a reasonable explanation for any of this. But to give you an idea of what this is like, this just happened a few days ago. I work in an office a couple of days a week where I run finances and contracts for this small company. I was going in on a weird day because the manager had asked me to fill in for her, and this happens all the time. Mostly what I do is I fill in for this woman when she needs a break. So I'm coming around the corner toward the office, and I immediately just know what's about to happen. She's forgotten she asked me to fill in for her today. I know this somehow. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to have to deal with the confusion this has created. I had no reason to think this was going to happen. As I'm approaching the office building, there are no outward signs that would point to this being the case. This manager has never asked me to fill in for her and then just forgot. And you have to ask these questions. I find that most spiritual people don't like asking those probing questions. And I'd say that if you're afraid to take a critical eye to your abilities, then you're not being honest with yourself. You don't want the truth. You want your version of the truth. So, of course, long story short, I walk in and that's exactly what's happened. Ian, what are you doing here? And I'm like, read the email you sent me a few weeks ago. You asked me to fill in for you today, and so forth and so on. This whole thing, it's a little bit of a mess. So, what good is any of that? Practically none. It serves almost no purpose whatsoever. It's not like getting access to that information changed anything. It didn't help anything, right? The only purpose for me getting access to that information was that, once again, I get reminded that I get glimpses of the future. And my guess is, I think more of you can relate to this version of clairvoyance that I'm describing, as opposed to, I see a second 9/11 coming in 2 weeks and I must inform the world. It's mostly these quiet examples of remembering the future. But here's my final thought. Just because they are quiet, just because your predictions don't make you rich, or famous, or a hero of some kind, that does not mean you should discount these experiences. These experiences are beautiful, and they are also for you, and often for you alone. They're often, not very sexy. They're not very exciting. We need to stop looking at these experiences as something to capitalize off of in one form or another. If that's what you really want from the abilities we talk about on this channel that can arise when you practice aligning yourself with the present moment, then I'd say you have a very frustrating road ahead of you, because what you want really is recognition. You have to be honest. you want to be special. You want people to look up to you as a guru of one kind or another. You want money, you want power, you want attention, etc., etc. And that's fine. People chase after that. But you should be honest with yourself and with those you're communicating with about these ideas as to what is really driving you. And I got to tell you, from what I've seen over the years, the vast majority of the spiritual speakers out there, the self-described gurus and the advisors and what have you, are getting a lot of attention because ultimately they are pointing, or they're promising material riches, or they're pointing towards some sort of special recognition that you're going to get out of all of this. So you have to be careful. For now, that's all I wanted to touch on today. We will certainly come back around to these kinds of abilities, and we'll be exploring their mechanics and all the implications they have on how this world of ours ticks. So again, if you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section below. I will get back to you when I can. So until next time, peace and love to all of you. Take care. Bye-bye.